Welcome once again to yet another beautiful day, another beautiful episode, another beautiful show here at Humanist TV Africa. Here at Humanist TV Africa. My name is Kato Mukasa, and of course, in the studios is Dennis Bongole. To do the slides, we'll be able to see, so that we can be able to get a picture of what Rome was. Rome was a very great empire, from a republic to empire. Today, we're talking about Rome now. Before I go to that, I want to encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and Facebook page, which is Humanist TV Africa. And please like, share, comment. We are here to exchange ideas. We are here to learn from you as you learn from us. We don't claim to know everything, but we do research. We are students in the School of Life. We do research, and we come here and we share with you what we do research about. Remember, there are many things which we never studied in schools. And now this TV is taking this education right to you. Now, you have students, you have children, you were a teacher of history. I'm going to give you the best history you need to teach your children, you need to teach your students, the history which they don't teach in schools. But of course, I'm going to also tell you why the Jews never took on Christianity and why the Romans actually embraced Christianity and used it as a tool to rule and conquer the rest of the world. Come with me as I take you through the history of Rome. The history of Rome, a brief history of Rome. And I should tell you, the history of Rome can be discussed in an entire day. There is no way I can finish it in 1 hour, but trust me, I'm going to summarize it in 1 hour. But this history, you need 12 hours to discuss it. But I'm going to do my best and summarize it in 1 hour. That's what I'm telling you. I cannot exhaust each and everything. I'm going to give you a summary, but the best summary you can get. Here we go. A lesson in history, lesson from the rise and fall of the Romans. Remember, I talk about the Romans. Why the Romans? Read your Bible. Your Bible has a full book called the Book of the Romans. It's in your Bible. Why? Because the Bible is a product of the Romans. Now that you don't know, now you know. The Bible, especially the New Testament, is a creation of the Romans. Today we're going to know why they had to create it. But I'm going to take you through the history of the Romans. Here we go. Now, to understand Rome and the Romans, I will tell you first to understand the history of the Greeks. That's why before this show, I first did a story of the Greeks. Go back in the archives of Humanist TV Africa, look for my episode where I talk about the Greeks history, the history of the Greeks. Once you understand the history of the Greeks, you are going to find the history of the Romans easier. Why? Greece was better than the Romans. People think about Romans as if they were better. No, Greeks were better than the Romans. We are better civilized. We are first civilized than the Romans. In fact, the Romans copied much of their art, much of their civilization from the Greeks. Yet the Greeks also copied much of their civilization from the Egyptians or from the Kemet, which is Africa. Now, that's how important history is. That's why I take my time to research and I show you what they never taught you in school. I'm repeating it again. that Kemetic history, which is African history, the civilization of the Kemetic people, African people, is much older than the civilization of Europeans or Caucasians. That is historical. Now, and the civilization of Kemetic people is 6,000 years older. Mark that, is 6,000 years older than the civilization of the Greek. And the civilization of the Greek is 3,000 years older than the civilization of the Romans. Now, that's why I want you to understand this history very, very well. And why? Why take my time to come and teach you history? Because I want to understand, why do I oppose Christianity? Why do I oppose Islam? Why do I oppose religions? Because I know the history. Because I know the genesis. Now, why are people religious? Because they are ignorant. Am I answering you? I repeat the question. Why are people religious? Answer, because they are ignorant. Because they don't know the history of the world. Now, and I'm taking time to tell you the history of the world so that you can understand how do religions start? How do religions get formalized? How do empires legalize religion? Which empire is a young empire? Don't even talk about it when you talk about Greeks. Don't talk about Britain. That's a recent one. When you talk about Romans, don't talk about Britain. These are young empires. So I began this story by showing you the oldest civilized empires. Before we talk about Britain, later on, we shall come back and talk about Britain. And I'll show you how it is the young empire. When we talk about the Greeks, don't talk about the British. When we talk about the Romans, don't talk about the British. It's a very young empire. Now, which were the oldest empires? I've been discussing them. And what impact did they create to the entire world? Now, before we had the British Empire today, there was the Greeks, the Macedonians. I talked about them. Then they were the Romans. They were the Roman Empire, which ruled technically entire world. Rome ruled Britain. So people don't know why actually Britain becomes stronger later. Follow this history. Now, this history helps you to understand why religion. Why do you see crosses all over Europe? Why do you see countries having crosses? Where does it come from? Roman Empire. But Roman Empire, as I said, copied much of its civilization from the Greeks. But also the Greeks copied much of the civilization from Kemetic Africa. And Kemet means the land of black soil, which was technically Africa. So the Greeks copied from Africa, the Romans copied from the Greeks, and the civilization grows. Now, why do I take time to teach you this history? So you understand why humanism is the way today, how religions were created. That's why I take time to explain these things. And I've told you that when you talk about civilization, you talk about Kemetic civilization, and then talk about, of course, there are other civilizations I haven't talked about, the Sumerians and others, all civilizations. But I talk about Kemet, I talk about Greeks, Macedonia, Greeks. Remember, I talked about the heroes of the world, Alexander the Great, in one of my episodes. Go back into archives. Now, I'm going to talk about Rome. How did the Romans become so great when it was a small territory? Remember how Macedonia began? Remember how the Greeks began and conquered almost the entire world? Now the story of Rome begins. Rome begins from humble backgrounds, simple states that were fighting with the Greeks and the others, very weak states. But with time, from weak states, which had village leaders, I call them village leaders, chiefdoms, village leaders, kings who came all over here and there, because people gathered and then had to be led. That's how Rome began. Rome began, for if you were an African, you were in Uganda, Rome began like the Buganda kingdom. Simple structure, simple formation. You have a king come up, and then you have someone to worship, literally. someone to follow. And then you godify these people. Godifying them means that you see a person as a god. Then Rome grows up after several years, it becomes a republic. Now, when it becomes a republic, and a republic, you are seeing leaders, you are seeing rulers, of course, you are seeing a senate. Now, we talk about the years of Julius Caesar and before Julius Caesar. Remember, when I talked about the Greeks' history, I talked about Julius Caesar. And I talked about the conflict between the Persian Empire. Remember, there was the Persian Empire. And then the Macedonians and the Greeks. Then the Romans come into the picture. But the Romans are heavily borrowing from the Greeks. And then they become a republic. I'm going to be giving you chronological years, but I'm giving you a summary. They become a republic and they rule as a republic. A republic means that they have a government for the people and by the people. By the way, democracy began so many years ago. Democracy, a government of the people for the people. But in those ancient times, the democracy of that time was a bit different because not everyone voted. In fact, sometimes leaders would be appointed. But we have a Senate. Talk about a parliament today. We sit down and discuss and decides who takes over what. So when Rome becomes a republic with the time, as the Greeks empire, the Greeks fall, remember, go back and watch my episode of the Greeks. When the Greeks, Alexander the Great dies, and there's a disintegration. Remember what happened? Egypt is taken over by who? By Sato. By Ptolemy Sato. Ptolemy takes over Egypt. Now, a Greek empire is falling because whoever was where, they were in Asia, they were in Europe, they remained as soldiers, but they also became emperors in their own way. That's why Egypt ended up going to the hands of Ptolemy. Now, Ptolemy and others are Greeks, Macedonians. Now, but the fall of the Greeks fomented the rise of Rome. How did Rome become so strong? One man's misfortune becomes another man's advantage. That's how life is. When I die, people are going to come and take over for me and are going to be great because they're going to walk in my shadow. That's how life is. One empire falls, another empire rises. Now, the fall of the Greeks, the fall of Alexander, the death of Alexander the Great, who died at the age of 32, remember that story I talked about? Helped the Romans to grow because the Romans were always fighting the Greeks, and the Greeks were stronger than the Romans. But how do the Romans become much stronger? Alexander dies, and then there is a gap. What happens? Caesar, Julius Caesar, remember, had attacked later on Egypt. Remember the burning of the Great Library of Alexandria, which was named after Alexander the Great. And remember how Julius Caesar was in love with Cleopatra, and how Julius Caesar, a Macedonian Greek, had a son with Cleopatra, the king or the queen of Egypt. And they had a son called Caesarion. Remember that history I talked about? Now you can see how Macedonia and Greece is married to Egypt. They have a son now. Cleopatra is Greek, Caucasian, of course, but she has been born in Egypt. And she's the ruler of Egypt. And Egypt is bigger than the Egypt today we know. Now, you can see a fusion between Greece and the Greeks and Romans. They have a son, Caesarion, named after Julius Caesar. I talked about how Cleopatra goes to Rome and how Cleopatra humiliates her own sister so that she becomes queen, she becomes important. And remember, finally, there was between Julius Caesar and Pompey, Julius Caesar and Octavia. No, not Julius Caesar now, Mark Antony. Remember how Julius Caesar is killed by the Senate? 44. The year is 44. Julius Caesar is killed. Now, when Julius Caesar is killed, there is a confusion because he has been the great leader of the Republic. Remember, Julius Caesar led the Roman Republic. And then his adopted son, Octavian, who becomes Caesar at the age of 17, the young boy becomes the leader of Rome. But there's a struggle because Antony, Mark Antony, who had also got children with Cleopatra, got 3 children, the twins named after the god sun and the god moon, and then one young boy who were taken over by the sister of Octavian. The sister is called Octavian. Now remember what happens. Julius Caesar is killed by stabbing his own people, his own friends. That's why Caesar says, even you, Brutus, you kill me, you stab me. The hardest stab is that from a friend. Julius is killed by his friend, Brutus, and others. They kill him. They kill the greatest Republican, the greatest fighter. Julius Caesar is killed by his own fellow Romans, fellow senators. They kill him by doing what? By stabbing him. They come with daggers, they stab him. The death of Julius Caesar marks the end of the Roman Republic. And then the empire rises up. That's why we see that the greatest man in the history of Romans, basically, it's not my friend Julius Caesar. I loved Julius Caesar, just like I loved Mark Aurelius. Aurelius. I loved Aurelius. I'll be talking about Aurelius, why I loved him, the philosopher, emperor. But I loved Julius Caesar because he was so intelligent and was a good fighter. But who becomes the best of the best among the Roman emperors is the young Octavian, who becomes Caesar. Augustus Caesar becomes a leader at about 17 years, and becomes so influential that now is going to turn a republic into an empire. As young as he was, he's copying from his relative, Julius Caesar, who had adopted him as a son. Remember, what does Octavia do? Octavia kills the son of Julius Caesar. The man makes him a leader and he kills his son because he's fearing that Caesarion may take over. That's how power is. You kill your rival. Octavian, who became Augustus, killed the son of Julius Caesar. Why? He was a threat. He kills him. Was the boy at 17? He kills him. He becomes the leader. He fights the wars in Rome, unifies Rome. Then he says, it's not enough. We are becoming an empire. We are going to take over. So Rome becomes an empire, courtesy of Augustus, courtesy of the successor of Julius Caesar, turns a republic into an empire. An empire simply means we are going to go fight and conquer. What does everyone know about the Romans? One, they are the best fighters you can find on the field. They have the best armory. I'm going to be showing you photos of a Roman soldier. And I'll be showing you photos. You see, how did a Roman soldier wear the armor 100 BC? And how did a Roman soldier wear an armor 100 AD? Look at that gap. I want to show you a photo of a Roman soldier 100 BC, and you compare it with the Roman soldier 100 AD. You see transformation from a republic to an empire. Now, an empire is terrible. They have the best armor, they have the best swords, they have the best spears, they have the best arch, and they can fight on horses. Their strategies, they have the best military, and now they have a language called Latin. They are spreading Latin all over the world. Remember, even in Uganda, where I come from, people speak Latin in their churches. Mass, Catholic Mass is done in Latin, but people don't ask, why is the Catholic Mass done in Latin? People don't even think to ask. If Jesus was a Jew, I never ask people, why don't you people think? If Jesus was a Jew, why don't we have a Catholic Mass in a Jewish language? Why do you have a Catholic Mass in a Latin language, which is a language of the Romans? People must be asking these questions. We feel like we must ram it inside people's minds. Why don't we ask yourself, you African watching me, of what interest is the Latin language in the Catholic religion? Why don't we use the Jewish language? If Jesus was a Jew, why don't we use his language? Why do you use the language of the Romans? I'll tell you why. Because of course the Romans created Jesus Christ. I don't want to hear this, but this is the fact. Romans had a chance to find someone to help them maintain their empire. And that mythology was called Jesus Christ. Now, you go into a church with all the confusion we have, and we speak words in Latin, but you don't ask, why do we speak words in Latin? Does the God of Jesus understand Latin? Hell no. In fact, the God of Jesus was a slave under the Romans. The God of Jesus was a slave under the Romans. The Romans enslaved the Jews for over 100 years. The Romans killed Jews in thousands and thousands, not hundreds. Romans, I repeat it, killed Jews in thousands. Go back in the history, look at an emperor called Adrian. I'll be showing you the photo of Adrian here. Look at an emperor called Nero, Emperor Nero. I'll show you the photos today. Look at an emperor called Vespasian, plus his two sons, Titus and Domitian. And go back in history and see how the Romans enslaved the Jews. Now, use your mathematics. If the Romans wanted Jesus Christ, why were they killing the Jews? I repeat it for you who was watching me. If the Romans loved Jesus Christ, why were they persecuting the Jews? Why were they killing the Jews? Why did they enslave the Jews for over 500 years, not even 100? Why did the Romans enslave the Jews for over 500 years when they claim to have loved Jesus? And why did the Romans not become the Torah believers of the Jews, not become Judaizers, but became Christians? Why? And why did most of the Jews refuse to accept Jesus, but chose to remain Judaists? And why do Judaists not recognize Jesus Christ? Welcome to the history of the Roman Empire. Now, once you understand the history of the Roman Empire, your ignorance, if it was there, it will evaporate. It will go away. You will know that, okay, these guys create a religion to save themselves from who? From the Japanese, from the Chinese, from the Africans, especially the North Africans. From who? From the rest of Europe. They must look for a religion to protect them. Remember, I stopped at the point when Julius Caesar has been killed, the year is 44. And then the birth of the Roman Empire starts. I'm going to show you map. Not one, not two, maps to show you how big was the Roman Empire. Then I'll ask a question. How do you sustain a falling empire? You use religion. I'll tell you something to think about. If Christianity was so good, why did the Romans have to use their swords, their archers, their spears to spread Christianity? If Jesus Christ was so good, why didn't the Romans use peace to spread Christianity? The question I'm asking you, the one watching me today, wherever you are, the question I'm asking and I'm repeating it, if Jesus Christ was the darling of the day, why did Constantine and those that followed him from 313, go read that here, 313, the Edict of Milan codifies, puts Christianity as a legal religion in the Roman Empire. Roman Empire doesn't mean Italy. You'll be a joker to say that. Roman Empire had covered the entire world. I'm going to show you where the Roman Empire had gone. The question is, if a religion is good, if Jesus Christ is good, why do you use force to spread him? Why do you kill thousands of people to spread Jesus Christ? I've been telling people that actually people blame the Arabs, but the Romans killed more people than the Arabs. The Arabs spread Islam, the Arabs spread Muhammad. Romans killed more people. I repeat this on camera. Romans killed more people to spread Jesus Christ than the Arabs killed to spread Islam. Who is more brutal? The Romans were more brutal than Muhammad. That whenever they went, they used their swords, their soldiers, to force people to become Christians. Why? They had declared it a state religion. The year is 313. You either become a Christian or you die. You either become a Christian or you die. Yet, I've told you that they are the persecuted Jews for over 500 years. Even before they became a republic, even before they became an empire, there was persecution of the Jews. The Greeks haunted the Jews. Babylonians haunted the Jews, almost everyone. So not only Romans persecuted the Jews, all others. So when I say 500 years, not only Romans, I'm talking about almost everyone was killing the Jews. Why? Then how does a man like Constantine, who was never religious at all, who never was religious at all, wake up one day and say, the year is 313, and say, now I'm making the religion here. Now, the year is 325, we see the Council of Nicaea, and then they are putting a Bible in place. They are putting what we call the canonicity to identify which book is good, which book is bad. Now, once they have their Bible in place, once they have their holy book in place, they must spread Christianity by force. And how many years did they take? The Crusades? Go read the books. But I've told you, count it from the time Constantine became influential and became a Christian. From about 313, they are spreading Christianity by force. And they are killing people for over 100 years there in between. Not only Romans, but whoever took over Christianity, including the British Empire. Later on, I will show you. All of them are spreading Christianity by force. Why? If something is good, why do you kill people to spread it? I always ask that question. If something is so good, if Jesus Christ was so good, why did he use force to spread him, to take him to the world? Now, welcome to the history of the empires. Welcome to the science and the politics of religion. They are creating a religion as a state religion. The year is 313. By who? By Constantine. Now, when Constantine relocates to a place called Byzantine, or which becomes the Constantinople, we see the Roman Empire declining. The fall of the Roman Empire starts. It has become so big. Within the empire, people are fighting among each other. Soldiers are no longer paid. Empire, which is so big, there's so much taxation, there is so much corruption. What happens? Roman Empire again is divided into two: the West and the East. The empire is so big, it has grown too big. No one empire can manage it. Now there are two empires in one. Some emperors are ruling the West, other emperors are ruling the East. The disintegration of the Roman Empire made it weaker. Soldiers are fighting. I'm going to show you photos of queens who revolted against their husbands. Queens who revolted against the establishment. Queens are revolting. Soldiers are revolting because the empire is so big. Think about an empire which covers the entire Mediterranean, which covers much of Asia, which covers much of Europe, including the UK. It was covered by the Roman Empire. Romans were so great. We are so big. We are so powerful. But how do they manage it? One, they are forcing every European to become a Catholic. That's why the kingdom of Britain was under the Romans. Remember, I told you how they became Protestants? By revolting against the papacy. And where is the papacy? The papacy was right in the center of the Roman Empire. Why? The Romans created their Pope. Catholicism is all about Romans. Wake up, Catholics. I was born into a Catholic family. Catholicism is a product of the Romans. The papacy is at the mercy of the Romans at that time. Constantine and other emperors will determine who become Pope. And the Pope would come and bless the armies. The Pope comes and says, sons of our God, go and kill your enemies. And the Pope, the so-called holy men in gowns, bless guns. The so-called holy men in gowns bless guns. And the guns give life? No. Guns kill people. The so-called holy men you call popes blessed guns. To go and do what? To go and kill people. The so-called holy men you call popes basically accepted slavery. In fact, popes sanctioned their men, Roman soldiers, to go and capture as many slaves as possible. If a religion allows you to keep a slave and kill a slave, is that religion good? I ask you again. If a religion allows you to capture people, to slaughter them like animals, to enslave them, to beat them, to rape them, is that religion good? That is Catholicism. Go figure out and find out how many people did Catholicism as a religion kill. I've told you, Catholicism is worse than Islam. I know people are hating Muslims. They go, oh no, Muslims have been so terrible. I'm telling you, I'm repeating it on camera. Catholicism has killed more people than Islam. It's on record. For the number of years they spent forcing everyone to become a Catholic and conquering territories. Tomorrow I'll talk about the Ottoman Empire, which was largely Islam. But I'll show that the Ottoman Empire did harm, but the harm done by the Catholics, the harm done by the Roman Empire was worse, to me as a historian, than the Ottoman Empire. So to me, Catholics did much more harm to spread their Jesus Christ than Muhammad did. Muhammad killed people, thousands of people, millions of people, but the Catholics were terrible. So, in brief, I want to take you through the history of the Roman Empire to the point where it fell, 447, where it fell, and why it fell, and the lessons we learned from all that. So, Dennis, I'm going to invite you to show me and show our viewers the slides we have organized. It should take us like 15 minutes, and then we shall go through them. The time I come back on the screen, we shall be done with the show. Then let us see the photos. Now, the photo there is the Roman Empire in 117 AD and the greatest extent. You can see the age of Augustus. I told you who was Augustus? I told you Octavia became Augustus. Augustus is a title, just like you see Caesar. People don't know this, they should know. Caesar, among the Romans, was a title, like you see Kawaka in Uganda. Augustus was a title. Now, I want to show you this. People, have a look at that screen. You see that Italy, that is green. Italy is a very small country today. Who are the neighbors? Spain, up north, France, Germany, Poland. England is far away from Italy. But Italy here, which I'm going to define as the cradle of Rome, ruled all these countries I've mentioned here. All those countries you see. Italy. Don't call it Italy. Call it the genesis or the headquarter of the Roman Empire. Took over Spain, took over France, took over Germany, took over Poland, England, and every other area there. That is what we call an empire. An empire expands. An empire does not stay in one place. Dennis, continue, please. The photos are quite many, Dennis. So when you talk about Roman Empire, look at this. Dennis maybe can make it much bigger for you. That's the empire. When you talk about Roman Empire today and talk about Italians, some people said are not Romans. When you see those Italians, people are saying are not really Romans. Then let's continue with the maps as I explain a few things. People are going to be saying it as I explain. In ancient Rome, Latin language was the official language. Look at the empire, how big it was. How big it was. This empire covered literally, let me use it again, literally, Roman Empire covered the entire world, literally. The official language is Latin, and what they did, I'm going to be showing you what did they build: the Colosseum, the Forum, the Pantheon, and others. This is 117 AD. They are growing. Look at this. I wish I could see this and explain to you. Let me show you a few places. You see Africa, where Africa is. They took over Africa. They took over Mauritania. They took over all these places, Jordan, Arabia, of course, Arabia. They took over, okay, in brief, they took over much of Arabia, the Arab world. They took over much of Europe. They took over much of India. You see, you can see by yourself, where did the Romans go? Where did they conquer? Romans were so powerful, my friend. And Romans began as a kingdom. I wanted to give you years. Began as a kingdom in the year 753. Remember, I told you when the kingdom of the British started. If I remember the year, it was 925. The British kingdom began in 925. But when did the Romans start? The Romans start in 753. Now you can see which is order. Romans begin in 753 BC, yet the British started their kingdom in 925. Now you can see a gap of how many years? About 200 years. There was no British kingdom, but yet there was the Roman kingdom. You can imagine. That's why I'm telling that the kingdom of the British is much younger than the Roman kingdom. The Roman kingdom subjugated them. Look at these places: Macedonia, Asia, Thrace, Gracia, all these. Then give me a few minutes to explain this. Thank you very much. You can see the capitals now where they are. Rome captured London, as you can see it there. Rome captured Athens, which is now Greece. Remember, I told you how it rose? One empire falls, another empire rises. That's the history of the world. The Greece Empire, Macedonia falls, and then who rises? The Romans rise. Byzantine Empire there, Alexandria, Syrian, Carthage, Jerusalem there, Babylonia. All these are strong empires, strong places. But who takes them over? The Romans. The Romans covered, dominated Western Europe, North Africa, and Near East. Romans fought with what we call the Etruscans. Roman Republic ended with Julius Caesar. Remember, I told you, after his assassination in 44 AD. And the Roman Empire had started much earlier, remember. Of course, by his assassination in 44 AD. Remember, the Roman Empire dominated the Mediterranean Sea. Dennis, continue, please. Brother, continue. Continue, please continue. Dominated the Mediterranean area. Of course, it took over the rule of the Ptolemy in Egypt. Of course, we see the suicide of Cleopatra and all that. Now, these are some of the emperors then, so are showing. Constantine, remember? I've been mentioning Constantine. One of the guys behind Christianity to be a religion allowed in Europe, in Roman Empire, was that man you see on the photo. If I tell you who is the man behind the question of Christianity, don't tell me Jesus Christ, please. It shows you haven't read. Please tell me Constantine, tell me Emperor Nero, tell me Emperor Vespasian, plus his two sons, Emperor Titus, Flavian, and Emperor Domitian, Flavian. People behind the question of Christianity. Those people. Look at that man there. Tiberius, remember Tiberius? And how Tiberius killed the Jews? Go and look up. Go and Google the history of Emperor Tiberius and how he dealt with the Jews. The Jews don't write that man at all. He killed them thousands. Emperor Nero, the guys who hated the Jews were Emperor Nero, Tiberius, Hadrian. This guy was even tougher. Hadrian, that one there. Hadrian killed thousands of Jews. Hadrian, 117 to 138. Destroyed Jerusalem there, you see. The good guys, again, people talk about the 5 good Roman emperors that built Rome. When they ask that question, they give it its names. They'll give you the 5 Roman emperors that built Rome. They'll give you Trajan, 98 to 117. They'll give you Marcus Never, 98 to 98. They give you Adrian, 117 to 138. They'll give you Antonius Pius, 138 to 161. They give you Marcus Aurelius. I love Marcus Aurelius, the poet, the philosopher. They'll give you that one, which is who is 161, 180. Those are the emperors that built Rome, that expanded Rome, that were loved by Romans, but some were hated. Now, these guys you see, one is a father, the other one is a son. Flavius Vespasian is the father of this one, Flavius Titus. These two built Rome, yes, but also they persecuted Jews. They persecuted Jews, those two there, plus their other brother, Domitian, you know. Now, for 200 years, let's go ahead with the photos. For 200 years, Rome prospered and dominated the world for 200 years, and that period is called Pax Romana. That period is called Pax Romana. Augustus Caesar, Octavia is the greatest Roman empire of all times. Augustus Caesar, born Gaius Octavius, was the first Roman emperor who ruled from 27 BCE to 14 CE. He is often regarded as one of the greatest Roman emperors due to his significant contribution to the empire's stability, expansion, and cultural development. Remember, I told you that Octavius took over from Julius Caesar around there. Of course, Julius Caesar died 44 to make the record straight. Died 44. So thereabout, Octavia took over. And of course, we see that Pax Romana era had 70 million people under the Roman Empire. And of course, anyone who lived on Roman land was called a Roman citizen. Now, I want to take you through photos of life under the Roman Empire. Look at those buildings. Look at the activities. Then take them thoroughly, photo by photo, as I explain. That whoever lived under the Roman Empire was called a Roman citizen. Mark you, Rome was not comprised of Italians alone, if I can use that language, because they went almost everywhere. But whoever was under Rome was called a Roman citizen. And Rome, remember I told you, fell in 476 AD. But before that, from about 44 AD, Rome was a force. It only fell in 476. You can imagine the years in between there. Now, the Romans spoke Latin, and they practiced Roman religion first. There was a religion of the Romans. I'm going to be showing you the gods. You can see they have animals, they have cows, they wash their clothes, they were organized. Romans actually had bathrooms, had bathtubs, they had a very good fighting system. They had a transport system. Later on, you can see the horse, you can see the soldiers, they move in formations, they move in lines. And of course, today when we talk about Italy is not Rome, honestly. Italy is not Roman Empire. No way. I can't accept that. And of course, we have seen that today you see, the Italy you see today has been a formation of 1,400 years after Rome disintegrated. You can see now life under the Roman Empire. Then let's continue showing them these photos. Leave it there for a minute. I want them to see how they could talk over the soldiers come and take over the hill, and then they can monitor the entire city. From the hill, you can see soldiers up the hill. They put them maps, they call them flags, They call them flags. At the top of the hill, even their armies have a Roman flag. You can see that flag. What do you see? A cross. Look clearly and see the flag. What is in the flag? And of course, we see that the Romans were always attacked by who? Between the second and sixth century. Then it's continuing showing those photos of the Roman life. Between the second and sixth century, Romans were under attack, by the way. By who? Who was attacking the Romans? And that period, we call it the migration period. The period between the second century and the sixth century, we call it the migration period. Romans were attacked by Vandals from North Africa. The guys from North Africa were called the Vandals. Now look at this. Then give me a minute here. I want people to see this. Look at that plan of a village. Romans were organized. People have said, and I think they're right, that the modern city, the modern way of planning cities was largely developed by Romans. But remember, I told you Romans copied from Greeks. Greeks copied from Kemetic Africa. But the modern way of city planning was developed by Romans. Look at that map of a village under ancient Rome, very organized. Who attacked the Romans? The Visigoths and then the Ostrogoths from Europe attacked the Romans. Then Romans were also attacked by the German Lombards, who conquered it in 568. These are Romans. Look at those photos. You know, a Roman farmer with his wife and child, and of course, it's a soldier at the same time. You see the Romans today trying to act out how Roman culture was in those years. You know, I've told that northern Italy became Germanized, and it is now known as Lombardy. When you ask Lombardy, that's the German Italy now. Of course, Italians, Germans later on took over Rome. And when we talk about its decline, who defeated it? The Germans, of course, and defeated Rome later on. But now we see Romans. Now here, these Romans are making juice. They are making oil out of olives. They are making oil out of olives. And you can see how they have their technology. For two men the other side, two men this side, and they are pushing this wheel which squeezes the olives to get you juice. They had factories, but you can see the factories. Factories handmade. Look at the body armor on your right, on your left. Body armor on your left, and then look at this man I love so much, Julius Caesar. Me, I like Julius Caesar very, very much because of his intelligence, because of his oratory, because of his poetry. I loved Julius Caesar. Now that's Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar had a son with Cleopatra, and the son was named Caesarion. Now this is one of the kings, emperors, the bronze statue of the emperor Trebonius. Gallus, 251 to 253 CE, found near the Church of St. John the Lateran in Rome. I will tell you a story why Romans always had photos with their men with small penises. I'll tell you why the Romans are shown with small penises in their statues. Pax Augustus, the Roman soldiers. Remember I told you the period where it became so important? It's called Pax Romana. Pax Romana. It had about 70 million Roman people. 70 million Roman people during the era called Pax Romana. Those are soldiers under the Roman Empire. Soldiers under the Roman Empire. Remember I told you who are the people who attacked the Romans? The Saracens, the Normans, the Vandals from North Africa, the Visigoths, the Ostrogoths. All these guys actually killed the Romans. And apart from killing them, later on we see intermarriages, of course, and then the gene pool changes. The gene pool changes. Remember the soldiers, the soldiers, the soldiers, the soldiers, the soldiers. So Romans today are descendants of who? The Romans, the Visigoths, the Vandals, the Normans, the Germans. So when you go to Italy today, don't say I've gone to Rome. No. The people there are a mixture of the Visigoths from North Africa, a mixture of Vandals. The Vandals are from North Africa, Visigoths, of course, from Europe, the Normans, the Germans, etc. All these guys invaded Rome. Look at the Knight Templar. The Knight Templar, partly were French soldiers, partly were Roman soldiers who were given the duty to guard, at one time to guard Jerusalem, because the Romans thought that Jerusalem is the capital city of their God, Jesus Christ. And these are the soldiers now. the Roman soldiers now. Okay, the Roman soldiers who ruled the world, who ruled the world. So Roman Empire was so strong. The Battle of Sink, they fought so many wars. They fought so many wars under Maximian Augustus 286, under Galerius Caesar 286, under Constantine Caesar 293. There was stability there during that period of Rome. Of course, the confusion came again under Augustus 308. The Roman Empire has this kind of confusion. Then we have Roman Empire divided into two, East and West, in the year 312. So the wars were so many. The Battle of Sinusfar, 197 BCE, by Rodo Orochia, the guy who gives us this kind of photo. We see Christianity becoming a force. Which year is that? The year is between 312 to 337. This is when now Christianity has been legalized. A Roman helmet in 2nd century. You can imagine, look at that helmet you put on your head to fight a war. Roman empires godified. They were taken as gods. They were worshipped as gods. Empire, the emperor was a god in a way. Look at the Edict of Milan. If you want to understand the history of Christianity, Edict of Milan, the year is 313. Who was behind the Edict of Milan? Constantine. And of course, the Council of Nicaea I mentioned about, 325. This is the question of Christianity. Romans fight in Caledonia that year, 120. Romans fight for Caria, 53 BCE. Romans have been fighting. Before they became a republic, they were fighting. When they became a republic, they continued fighting. When they became an empire, they fought. Now, Romans in Egypt. I want to tell you a story of Romans in Egypt. Look at how they attacked the Africans up north in Egypt. Remember, they are traveling by water. Remember, they can also travel by land. They fight on water, they fight on land. Remember, Constantine relocating to Byzantium, which became Constantinople in 324, and the empire declined in 324. Romans and Egyptian history, Cleopatra on coins. Remember the history, I told you the history, Cleopatra marrying or having an affair, having a sexual affair with Mark Antony, but of course first with Julius Caesar. This woman, Cleopatra, was able to juggle between two great men in Rome. That is Cleopatra of Egypt. Cleopatra of Egypt. Now, remember Cleopatra fall when they commit suicide? Remember when Cleopatra commits suicide? This is Egypt under attack. Kemet under attack. Kemet under attack by the Romans. And the Romans take over now. You see, the Romans take over, and Mark Antony is in bed with Cleopatra. Julius Caesar has been bed in Cleopatra. Here, the Romans are being welcomed in Alexandria. The Romans have been welcomed in Alexandria in that very photo. There you see the three guys behind the confusion in Kemet, Egypt. Julius Caesar, Mark Antony, and Pompey, General Pompey down there. These guys fought on the African soil of Egypt. These guys fought on that soil. Pompey was finally killed and his head was cut off. By who? By the Patorami. But the Patorami betrayed Pompey. Pompey was a Roman general who was killed in Egypt, was beheaded in Egypt. Julius Caesar, of course, takes over. Julius Caesar is in bed with Cleopatra, and Cleopatra has a son of Julius Caesar. The son is called Caesarion, and this son is killed by Octavia. This son is killed by Octavia. And of course, after the death of Cleopatra, we see the decline of the Cleopatra regime and the Ptolemaic. The Ptolemaic is ended. Look at the rebel of Alexandria. Remember Alexander the Great and his contribution to this library? Remember, this library was the center of knowledge for the world. And who burns it? Who burns it partly? Julius Caesar. Why? It was a war to bring back Cleopatra to power. So Alexander the Great burns it down. And of course, we see a regime that began with the Ptolemaic Sota is ended when Cleopatra commits suicide. Cleopatra commits suicide, and it marks the end of the Ptolemaic. It marks the end of the Macedonian Greek Empire. and then the Roman Empire takes over. The Roman Empire is full of people who are fighting with axes. You can see those axes. They come for you with axes. They have created barriers. They have created fences. They are fighting with swords. Mm. It was a very, 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 very serious kind of empire. Remember Octavian? Octavian killed the son of Cleopatra to take over. Now, I'm going to pause here a bit and I explain to you this photo. Then, physical appearance of the Romans. The Romans came in different shades. You can imagine. Look at that photo. I'm trying to make it bigger here on my screen to read it properly. There was the Proceras. Look at that man. The Flavus, Juvenis, Crassus, Robustus, Foedus, Grabber, Humilis, Fuscus, Senex, Massa, Imbecile, Pulci, and Barbatus. These are different shapes of people. These are different shapes of people in Roman Empire. Then let us go to the next stage. Hopefully, different shapes of people, different body sizes, different description of Romans. I'm going to explain this one here now. Thank you so much. Now, when you see the word process, it means tall. Humilis means short. Flavus means fair. When they say someone is flavus, the Romans mean you are fair. Fuscus means dark. So when the Romans write and say Fuscus, it means that person was dark, was black like me maybe. And then you see when you hear Juvenis, it means young. Senis means old. Robustus means strong, muscular. People say robustus. Robustus means strong and muscular. We're talking about the Romans, how they were describing people. Imbecilis means feeble, means weak. Crassus means fat. When you say someone is crassus. Massa means thin. Grabber means bowed, someone who's hairless. Barbatus means bearded and groomed. Like me now, they will call me Barbatus. Pulka means a handsome. Who is handsome in my team? Dennis. I think Dennis and who else? And Brian. Yeah? Yes, all of you people, you are what? You are Pruka, handsome. Foedas is ugly. When they say Foedas, ugly. This is how the Romans were describing their own people there. Then we continue. Of course, I told you the Roman Empire rose after the death of Julius Caesar, and of course after the end of the Pottorami dynasty, the Pottorami rule in Egypt. So famous cities and temples built by Romans. Look at this: the Temple of Venus and Roma, AD 320. Look at this. The upper one is that, and today, no, the upper one today is a ruin. It has been destroyed. But these guys were beautiful builders. Look at that building, how it was, and how it was, and how it is today. Then next photo, please. Next photo, please. Roman history is so big, I cannot finish it today. I'll just give you a summary of it today. Then let us continue, please. The Pantheon. We're talking about temples, places of worship, meeting places. These guys were builders. The Pantheon up to now lives. Up to now, the Pantheon. Do you know how many years the Pantheon has stayed? The Pantheon, a meeting place. Some people have called it a worshiping place. Others, a place where they could come and talk business. The Pantheon was built and it had an outing as a source of light that which was the oculus in the center of the dome. The opening measures 8.2 meter in diameter and is also referred to as the eye of the Pantheon, a clever lighting trick played out on 21st April, the founding date of Rome. The founding date of Rome is 21st April. At midday, the sunlight hits the metal grills above the door, filling the entrance way with light. This would have illuminated the emperor in ancient times, reflecting his perceived status as a god on earth. The emperor was a god. You can imagine. Thank you so much, Dennis. Next photo, please. Next photo, please. Yes, look at that. The temple of divine Claudius. Look at that temple. Romans were superb constructors, were superb, meticulous constructors. The Maison Carré, the Barrack, the Paramera, all these places exist up to today. That's how great the Romans are. Look at this one, the archaeological site of Sbetia, which is in northern Tunisia. Those places are there. They are ruins now, of course. They are ruins. Some of them have been excavated, of course. Others are no longer existing, but you can trace their origin there. Here is the Gani Temple, which is standing Roman connected building in Armenia, former Soviet Union. Look at that one in the middle. Then here on the far right is the Temple of Augustus in Pula. Augustus in Pula. Pula is in Croatia. Look at that. AD 14, between 27 Italy and then the region of Italy. These are old places. The Romans were in North Africa. I told you, the Romans were in Croatia. The Romans were in United Kingdom, or England, Scotland. Romans were there and actually conquered those places. Romans were partly in Asia. Romans were in India. Romans were almost everywhere. And of course, Romans had mythology. They had mythology. One of them was Prospina, the Roman goddess of fertility. The Roman goddess of fertility. Then let us continue, brother. Let's continue much faster. Camille, the mythology of female warrior, queen of Umbria in Ada. Go and Google about Camille or Camille, the mythology of female warrior, queen of Umbria in Ada. The Romans have that history that they had a god, a woman god who was fighting and killing men. Funny stories. Now, Roman gods includes Janus, Pluto, Saturn, Demeter, Diana. If your name is called Diana, no, it's a Roman god name. Mercury, Vulcan, Vesta, Venus, Neptune, Juno, Ceres, Apollo, Minerva, Jupiter, Terra, Fortuna, Liber, Sol, Invictus, and others. These are Roman gods. Look at those photos. Roman gods and goddesses. Very good. I've been mentioning the names. Now you can see the photos. Pluto, Mars, Saturn, Apollo, Mercury, Minerva, Cupid, Diana, Venus, Jupiter, Juno, Neptune. You can see the photos there. These are Roman gods. Romans had their own gods. Why did they take over Jesus Christ then? They had their own gods. Why then did they take over Jesus Christ? Why? It was politics. That's why I brought these photos here, to show you that Romans, like Africans, had their own gods. Now, the rule of the Flavius family and Constantine, AD 50 to 350, these men you see led to the creation of Christianity. Emperor Nero, God search him, Vespasian, the father of Emperor Titus, and the father of Domitian. Domitian, the name is not here. So there is Constantine, there is Emperor Nero, there is Titus, there is Vespasian, and there is Domitian. Those 5 people, here we see 4 on the screen. Those 5 people are responsible for the creation of Christianity in so many ways. People normally mention Vespasian or Vespasian, and they forget Nero, how Nero persecuted people, leading to the rise of cults. And one of them was the cult of Christianity. Nero was persecuting people, and the people create a cult, and that cult is called Christ Christianity. Why? Because of Nero's persecution. They want to ride together and fight back Nero. They want to disagree with his policies. Nero sends who? Nero sends his army general called Vespasian. He sends him where? He sends him to Jerusalem to do what? To query a rebellion, because the Jews are rebelling against Emperor Nero. Meanwhile, a certain sect, a cult called Christianity, has been formed right inside the Jewish land. They are saying they have a savior. They are saying they have a savior. And the Jews don't agree with the Christians. It's a cult. They call it a cult. And then who sees a point to make it to their advantage? Nero. Once Nero sees that there's a cult, Nero wants to use it against the Jews. Nero dies, and who takes over? Vespasian. Vespasian takes over after fighting 4 other emperors, would be emperors. He takes over, and then he codifies, he regularly accepts to say, let us work with these Christians, this cult called Christians. Because remember that the Romans don't believe in Christ. They have their own gods. We have seen their own gods. But why are they accepting the Christians to exist? Because Christians are going to help them to fight the Jews. The Jews don't recognize the Romans. The Romans are ruling Galilee, the Romans are ruling Judah, but the Jews don't recognize them. How do they defeat the Jews? Promote a sect, promote a cult called Christians. A cult of Christians. Who promotes it? Nero promotes it, Vespasian promotes it, Titus promotes it, and Domitian promotes it. And the final man to do the good work is Constantine, who actually, through the edict of 313, the edict of Milan, he makes Christianity a formal religion. Let's continue. He makes Christianity a formal religion. So general lessons from the Roman Empire. Look at the composition of the Roman Empire. Is there any remains of the Roman Empire today? Who are the Romans today? Is Italy a true symbol for the Romans today? I've been asking those questions, and remember, I've already answered those questions. Is Italy a true symbol of the Romans today? No. Why? Because of intermarriages. They've married the Vandals, they've married the Visigoths, they've married all these other people. So they are no longer true Romans. They have married Germanic tribes. Look at the size of the map of the Roman Empire. Compare it with other empires. Now, I want to show you that the Roman Empire was great, but not the greatest. Look at the kilometers it had. 5,300 kilometers. But look what the Qing Empire. One day I'll come here and I'll teach you about the Qing Empire. Where's the Qing Empire? Talking about Asia. It covered 4,400 kilometers. How about the Islamic Caliphate? Islamic Caliphate covered 8,100 kilometers. So you can see that the Roman Empire was even much smaller than the Islamic Caliphate. How about the Soviet Union? The Soviet Union covered 8,240 kilometers. How about the Mongol Empire? Have you heard about the Mongol Empire? It covered 8,640 kilometers. So it was bigger. How about the British Empire, which all of us are in? The British Empire covered 8,360 kilometers. It means that the Mongol Empire was bigger than the British Empire in terms of coverage of the kilometers. How about the Portuguese Empire covered 4,480 kilometers? How about the French Empire covered 4,930 kilometers? So in total, when you look at it, in totality, you see that the Mongol Empire was bigger. The second biggest empire was the British Empire. Then there we see the Islamic Caliphate. Some people call it the Ottoman Empire, was the third one in terms of size. Then we see, no, actually before that, we can say that, wait, the Spaniards were bigger. I haven't seen them up north there. The Spaniards were bigger. Spanish Empire was big. 14,530 kilometers. Wow. The map shows it all. Of course, there's the US also, which covered 4,760. You see? So the Spanish Empire actually was much bigger. These are empires. Then just a minute here. I want us to understand this properly. We talk about empires, which was bigger. The Spanish Empire was bigger than all of them in terms of coverage. Then if Spanish Empire is number one, then number two would be, of course, the British Empire. And then number three would be the Soviet Empire. Number three would be number one is Spanish Empire. Number two is the Mongol Empire. Number three is the British. Then number four is the Soviet. Number five is the Islamic Caliphate. And then number six is the Qing Empire. Then number seven is the Roman Empire. Now, Roman Empire therefore comes to at number 7 in terms of big empires. Then we see number 8, it will be the French, and lastly, it will be the Portuguese Empire. Those are the empires. Those are the empires of the world that took over the world. that shook the world. But of course, the Portuguese were not so strong. And of course, we see the rise of Jesus Christ. I've told you who created Jesus Christ as something to talk about. It were the Romans. Why? The Romans wanted to fight these other empires, these other people. It's good I've shown you other empires coming up. How do you fight them? Create a Jesus Christ. Create a force to rally these other empires against the Qing Empire, against the Mongol Empire, against others. They may not have been there at the same time, but they were rising up as kingdoms. Now you have to beat them down. How do you beat them down? Get your soldiers and have your soldiers blessed by the Pope. The Pope is the one blessing them. Go to England, capture soldiers, have them blessed by the Pope. Say you are fighting for Jesus Christ, you are Christians. Go to France, do the same thing. Go to Portugal, do the same thing. Go to Spain, do the same thing. Go to Africa, do the same thing. That's how the Roman Empire was going. How did it consolidate its armies? One of the most important ways done by Constantine was to adopt Christianity and made Christianity a state religion. The year is 313 through the edict or the law of Milan, the law made in Milan. Of course, we have seen that it's 325. We have the Council of Nicaea. This guy is sit. The bishops all over Roman Empire sit, and then they make for you a Bible. I repeat it, they make for you a Bible. But of course, the Romans are remembered for many other things. Among others, the legal system. As a lawyer, I cannot forget to mention that the Romans gave us a very codified legal system, a very beautiful legal system, which we came to accept as the Justaman Code, which was released in 6 BC, no, 6th century. In the 6th century, they gave us the Justin Code, where we have now precedents in law. There are precedents which we copy from the Romans. And apart from that, the Romans were the best architects, the best state planners, the best masonry, the best city builders. They built bathtubs, they built arenas for fighting, or the galaxies for fighting. They built senates. Today we talk about senate in Europe, senate in America. Where did the senates come from? Look at the history of the Greeks, look at the history of the Romans. When we talk about I'm a senator of the US, where does it come from? Trace it from the Romans, trace it from the Greeks. The Romans talk about a republic, they have a parliament. So democracy doesn't start today. Democracy started many years ago. Talk about the best speakers like Marcus Aurelius, Cicero. These are Romans, people behind the greatness of Rome, the best orators like Cicero. Talk about art, talk about poetry. The Romans were so good at poetry. I loved their poetry. They were so good at literature. They were so good at art. They built all those buildings. They had the best armies of the time. They had the armies which had helmets, body armor. They could go for war, and the body armor sometimes wear them down. When you talk about the British Empire today, one day I'm going to come here and tell you about the British Empire, and I tell you why the Romans actually failed to capture Celtic at one point, Scotland, if you want me to use it that way, because their body armor was so heavy, and the Scottish made them wait for over 14 days without crossing to their land. They had to go back defeated. Julius Caesar said, I can't take over these guys. These guys are tough. The Celtics in their mountains, in their hill places. And then the Romans had their body armor weighing them down. They couldn't take over the Celtics. They couldn't. Thank goodness for that. Their body armor was so big that they failed to capture Britain for some time. Julius Caesar failed, actually, tried and failed to capture Britain. It were other emperors who took it over. Julius Caesar failed because of the body armor. Thank you so much. So the Romans were so good in many things they did. Their art, their Latin language spread all over. I've been asking a question. Why do you use Latin language in your Christian mass? If Jesus is a Jew, why do you use Latin language? Why? Because Romans created Christianity. The year is 313 through the edict of Milan. Romans gave you Christianity. So don't ask anymore where it comes from. It's the reason why Jews are not Christians. And yet you claim that Christ was a Jew. Why? They are quoting Christ to fight the Jews. Christ was a coward. Jews said he was not a son of God. He was just a mortal man. He was a sinner. He was killed. We don't value Jesus Christ. He's a fake. He's a political tool meant to destroy the Jews. And the Romans are forcing everyone to believe Jesus Christ. People, yes, Nana, I agree with you. Why are people religious? Because they are ignorant. I've answered that question today, and thank you for emphasizing that. People are religious today because they are ignorant. They are ignorant. They don't know the Romans created Jesus Christ to fight the Jews who had insurrected for 60 years. There was what we call the Maccabean Revolution. The sons and their father who was a Jewish rabbi. Their father was a Jewish rabbi. The three sons of the Maccabean Revolution for 60 years revolted against the Romans for 60 years. How do you think the Romans would beat the Jews? The Jews have revolted for 60 years. 60 years, the Jews revolted and put their own kings in Jerusalem, in Galilee, in Judah. How do you beat the Jews? You promote a cult called Christianity. You use it to beat the Jews. And the year 313, you legalize it now to make it a state religion so that you forget about your own gods. Embrace this God to hoodwink the Jews who are becoming a problem, but also to use it and take over the entire world. Now, why are you a Christian? Ignorance makes you a Christian. Because you don't know the history, because you don't know why Christ was created, and why the Jews reject the fallacy, the mythology, the lies behind the creation of Christianity. So that was for today. It was a show for today. I briefly told you about the Romans. In one of the next shows I will do, I will tell you exactly how the Romans promoted a sect called Christianity and how the Romans, under the Flavian dynasty, writes your New Testament. Create fictitious stories. They even have a book in their Bible called Romans, Ephesians, Colossians. Don't you use your head and ask yourself, where do you get these names? Why are the Romans having a chapter in the Bible? They wrote the Bible. For who? For dominance, to take over, to beat the Jews, number one. On their mind were the Jews who had defeated them for 60 years. The Maccabean Revolution. For 60 years, they had failed to quell it. So how do you beat them? Create a sect and use it to beat the Jews first. Having beaten the Jews and defeated them, make them slaves, now use the same religion to take it all over, wherever you go. You no longer promote your own religion. You say, we are promoting Christianity. We are now Catholics. That's how they promote the church. That's how they sanction the popes. Whoever becomes a pope, the emperor must accept. Catholicism is made. It's made a religion. And that's how England gets Catholicism. That's why France gets Catholicism. It was not there. The Romans took it there by force. You either accept to become a Christian or you die. Thank you so much, Dennis. It has been a great show. I'll be back with more of these educational stories, educational historical stories. If you doubt it, go in your books and please go in the comment section and say, you told a lie. I'll appreciate that argument where you say, you told a lie. The Romans never created Christianity. Just go into the comment section, like, comment, and share. My name is Kato Mukasa, and the TV is Humanist TV Africa, and the studio was Dennis Bongo Retire. Dennis Bongo will be back with us in the next show. Thank you for watching, and keep it positive here at Humanist TV Africa. See you in the next one.